Yo, 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 what's up, good people? It's the boys from the Phantom Geek Zone back again. I'm Izzy.
I'm Riyaal.
And we're bringing you another hot review today, continuing with our DCEU recap series.
I didn't have to remind you today.
We're going to be covering Aquaman 1.
Yeah.
And yeah,
no, what's it? No subtitles.
Yeah. This is Aquaman, actually. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
It's not, it's clean,
Yeah.
like from the social network. But anyway, interesting on a couple of levels, man. This is, our first, movie live action iteration of Aquaman. It's the first solo movie, not the first appearance. That was Justice League first. So they did like an intro, let's say. Yeah, it wasn't brief. It wasn't a cameo. It was an introduction, and now we get into his, backstory this time around. First things first, the casting. We saw him in Justice League, but just getting into Aquaman as a whole. What's your take on Jason Momoa playing?
Man, he's good. He's good. I think it was a really good casting.
Yeah.
It's obviously in the comics he's a white dude with blonde hair.
Yeah.
But I liked it that they did a POC. I think he's half Samoan, half white.
And that's the thing. It's like a fitting type, because as you said, like the whole Samoan thing is like a strong tie, like water and culture.
Yeah, they're a sailor culture type of
Yes.
situation. The Polynesian islands, and it suits him as well because he's tatted up as well, so it kind of fits into his character.
He's got that super tribal look, and looks and feels like a leader. But
as a kid to say, he has aura.
He
has aura. So I think the casting was really, really nice. It kind of fits into his character as well because of the DCEU characters, he's probably one of the lesser serious ones in terms of how he acts, how he converses with people. Because you've got like Bruce and Dan, who are like, very stoic, very and then you've got Barry, who's like a little bit
on the goofy side.
At least. And then Jason Momoa as Arthur Curry is kind of like in that in-between where he's got a little bit of spiciness, but on the whole he's kind of a serious character.
Yeah.
And he does that really well. I mean, we know he does serious really well from Game of Thrones.
Yes.
Khal Drogo. I know he's acted in other stuff that I would have watched, but I can't think where else.
Yeah, no, certainly his most prominent role. The others were just little appearances here and there.
Yeah, so I mean, he's just got the aesthetic. He's big, he's buff and whatnot. So I think with the casting they did really, really well. I think it suited his character well, and it gave him it's a nice story that they gave him.
Yeah, I certainly don't have anything different to say on that front. His look, the physique, everything, the voice, he just screams Aquaman.
Yeah.
Dude.
Like they say, some people are built for certain characters. I would say
without a doubt, man.
Definitely one of the ones that are more built for or suited his character really well.
I certainly wanna speak to that a bit more in the sense that until the end of time, people always want to be praising Robert Downey Jr.'s casting as Iron Man.
Yeah.
But I don't know if we give enough praise or props to other people who are just as well cast in their respective roles. I'd say Robert Downey. Look, he's number one because he's kind of the first of this era.
Yeah.
Long had comic book movies and all, but it's him. It's Steve Rogers. Chris Evans. Amazing.
You could go Ryan Reynolds, Deadpool.
Ryan Reynolds, Deadpool, definitely.
It's actually the same person.
Jason Momoa is definitely in the conversation, but
I wouldn't say he's upper echelon like those types.
Would you say that second tier?
Yeah, second tier.
Okay.
I put him more on the level of maybe Ben Affleck
as Batman. Okay.
Batman, I would say more Henry Cavill is more on the upper echelon there as Superman as a casting. But Jason Momoa was I would say, I don't know, maybe he's even caught in between.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. I wouldn't put him amongst maybe Tony Stark's or.
But now, are you considering the story, or is this just purely casting based?
I think it's just purely casting.
Wow, okay, it's an interesting. I can see it. Interesting enough, I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, it's like he's there, but he's just.
Yeah, not quite.
Yeah.
Okay, I can miss that. Yeah.
But I mean, I also mess with the story as well. Like the story that we got in this movie, it was actually really nice. Like I don't know, I was watching it and I was like, okay, 2.5 hour runtime.
Yeah.
That's pretty long.
Yeah.
But based on what we got, it kind of all made sense. It flowed one into another for me.
Okay.
Yeah, but obviously I'm getting sidetracked into the story.
No. Let's get into it. I think we've established that. Look, Jason Momoa is great.
Do you want to go through all the other characters as well? Let's rather do that before we get into the story.
Okay. With the other characters, you've got then
the Queen.
Yeah, Nicole Kidman. Plays his mother. I liked her in this. I liked her.
Even the dad. It's credit to me. I didn't get his name, but yeah.
The dad. I'll break down the dad story just now. Nicole Kidman I liked because there's this whole thing about stunt casting, like putting a big name in a movie just to draw attention, just whatever. And I'm like, I don't care about that. For me, do they fit the role or not? And it's always nice, not a requirement, but it's nice when you get a surprise as far as, oh damn, this person in this universe, but hey, look at how well they work. Similarly with, no why, but naturally this movie just brings about so many comparisons. Thor's dad, Odin, Anthony Hopkins, legendary actor. He gets into the comic because again, look, we understand we're geeks and whatever, but we know that the snobbier people, be it the fans or the actors themselves, kind of look down their nose at this comic book movie space, and sometimes it's not necessarily true, but we put that on people, so we perceive them to be that way. Anthony Hopkins, I mean, I don't know if you've seen all the little TikTok clips and this guy's like dancing everywhere. He's the most chilled and zen guy in the world, but you wouldn't think that from Mr. Academy Award winner, So in a similar sense with Nicole Kidman, like you would never guess in today's world anyone is faking. I mean, they literally talked to Denzel Washington about Black Panther 3. But back in the early days, it was a different story. This is not early days per se, but it's more in the middle ground, that transitional sort of phase. But anyway, I say that to say Nicole Kidman was a lovely surprise, but I liked her portrayal in this role. I think she did a great job. The dad, there's that conflict where if someone plays an annoying character, you sometimes forget it as a viewer that they're meant to be annoying. So don't be annoyed by them being annoying. Them being annoying is a good thing. In the same vein, this guy was kind of too plain and boring for me. But I'm resting in my mind that maybe this is how the character's meant to be. That it's not like she was meant to go and find like a CEO just a normal regular guy, and then so in that aspect he played it well. I'll give him that props. So I don't know what
he portrayed his love story well. He's just going onto the PA every morning.
He did the love sick puppy thing perfectly. I'll give him that props as well.
Then you've got Amber Heard as Mira.
Funny enough, right? Amber Heard.
Before the drama.
I can just tell you, I feel like this movie's gonna have more anecdotes than actual reviewing, but anyway, I'd never heard or seen Amber Heard. I don't know if she's appeared somewhere or whatever. And then there was the whole drama with Johnny Depp and whatnot. And then at some point, it was mentioned that, she's an Aquaman. And I'm like, huh? Oh, she's the one who played the red. So when I saw her watching it the first time, I'm like, okay, new actress type of thing. So I never tied her to the scandal. And even now, because I still don't know who she is and what she's done, I'm really tired. It's just on some, I'm away, but I just keep it moving as is. But her casting and portrayal, what's your take?
I mean, I liked it.
Okay.
She was a strong female lead. You would consider a lead.
She wasn't a damsel in distress. I think there's probably a better way to put it, because the strong female lead thing has kind of gotten negative connotations lately. But
she wasn't a damsel in distress. She could hold her own. She was like a voice of reason for Aquaman and Ocean Master as well. To an extent, and she was also kind of a driving factor in the story as well. So definitely added to the story more positives than negatives. So I think it was well cast.
Okay.
Then you've got Willem Dafoe as like the mentor role, which is very nice.
That ponytail that he had just killed me whenever I saw it. But
And
yeah,
then you've got
Patrick Wilson was the half brother.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So good, so good. Like it's not even just like I don't know. I can't tell you exactly what, but I
Yeah.
just enjoy the portrayal.
Has he played an asshole before? I don't think so.
I don't remember where I've seen
the
him.
18 he was half an asshole, not fully. But I think here he is, to a large extent than before.
Yeah.
He's usually like a nice, timid, chill, or even a fun dude. So this is a
Usually
nice
like a dad
change
or
of
something,
pace. I know he was huge in a particular horror franchise. I'm not sure which one.
Conjuring, isn't it?
Yeah. The Conjuring. He was, of course, in Watchmen.
Yes.
He's
yes.
the Night Owl dude or something.
Night Owl. Okay.
Yeah. And like as I mentioned in the A-Team as well, he's appeared on this. So I know he's been
He's
around.
Yeah.
Here and there. So once again, it was a nice surprise seeing him because he's one of the dudes, similarly to what I said about Guy Pearce in Iron Man 3.
Yeah, he's
review that.
around.
He's been around and I expected that he would have done a little more, but seeing him was like, oh, cool. I'm glad he's
And again, like
got
Guy
this major
Pearce
role.
killed it.
Yeah. Without a doubt.
Really did well with being the insecure little brother.
Yes.
That's the one thing, the insecure little brother.
Yeah.
The insecure king because you're the insecure little brother.
Yeah, fighting to claim the throne, got the other guy. I like all the little tropes.
Yeah.
But he played them quite
And
well.
also just being the delusional savior of the world.
Yes.
As well as just being ruthless as well. Like he just killed people.
He wasn't half-assing in his role.
Yeah, he really wanted to.
I enjoyed that quite a bit. And then there was homie, unfortunately I don't know his name. He was, the
Black
sub-villain, if you will. Yeah, he played the Black Man. Was it Manta? Black Manta, yeah. He and his dad. I like the dynamic. Unfortunately, we lost it a little too early.
Nice opening scene there. Yeah.
But I don't know, man. His portrayal throughout, it feels like, they were unsure what to do with it.
I think it was more of a setup for the
future movies.
The future movie, yeah.
Man, I don't know because again, right?
Because he did portray it really well.
That's my thing. Even if he was set up for future movies, I'm gonna judge him on what he did in this movie.
One,
So here I'm like, he came in hella strong, like a formidable dude. He's a pirate, this, that, whatever. And then homie comes in, makes him a puppet, which isn't inherently bad. It's just that what then he goes on to do wasn't much, in my opinion, because they still kept it about, that half brother and the kingdom.
I guess
and all.
that's kind of where you wanted it to go as well. Like I wouldn't have liked if they split the focus. You know what I mean? Because I've struggled with split focus on villains.
My thing is that there is a way to balance it out properly, and I would have rather they try to do that, or have the Black Manta there a lot less. Like have him there in the beginning, that whole thing where where his father was killed. That was impactful because again it also sets up his motivation, so to speak.
For the next,
Then what you can do, where the other king, I don't know if you recall his name, the half brother, where he can then come back in at the end after losing, go to that guy and be like, hey man, we've got a common enemy, what are we gonna do? That for me would have been a better setup, because he started off great motivation, and then in the middle, even the whole thing of, okay, we're gonna give you the guns, we're gonna give you, I don't know, it just, he lost a couple points, from my perspective where that was concerned. There was that other scene, the way they chased them, but man, I don't know, it just didn't, and all of that for me. I love the portrayal, just on what they did with him in the story.
Yeah, and I think that's what surprised me on the rewatch. Is like everyone portrayed their characters really well.
Yes,
DCEU gets a lot of flack, but this movie I would say is one of the better ones.
Yeah, man, there's a good number of things that they did right in this one. Shout out to James Wan. He directed this movie. He was a horror dude for the longest. I think towards the end there was a Saw movie or two that he directed. And then he switched over. His first blockbuster was The Fast and the Furious 7. And so I'm not sure, what your recall is where those are concerned. There was a scene, because that's the one where Jason Statham is the villain. And in one of the fights where they're trying to slam him into the ground and the camera kind of flips over. And we saw similar shots in this movie as well, where mid-fight the camera kind of spins. So that's, his signature basically. But I think overall I did enjoy that direction. And once again, me and comic book fights, they they're a huge thing. They were very interesting.
The fights were really nice.
Yeah.
That was the one thing I've noticed. Like the fights were really good.
Yeah.
Comparing it to what we've reviewed so far in DC, like there's big grandiose fights.
Yes.
Where this was more like one-on-one. You know, like.
And once again, you know, kind of similar to Man of Steel, the camera work around the fights was also quite interesting.
Even the choreography was also interesting because usually you're fighting hands and fists or swords, but here it was tridents at points. It's like different weapon completely.
And being in a separate rather different playing ground.
And then also when you're in the water, how do you do a fight scene?
That's what I'm getting at. Being in a different setting than normal and making that interesting as well. And I liked how with Man of Steel we spoke about how the camera was following the action directly. With this one, it was like bouncing off the walls almost. You know, they're fighting here, and then the camera goes and zooms out over there, and then it shows from above, and then does that spinning thing. And I'm like, yeah, man, there's a lot of dynamic work that came through, and I was thoroughly entertained by virtually every fight that I saw. You know, like
all of them.
I don't think there was any this is lackluster. Even the main one, you know, where they're fighting for the throne, basically. That was quite an interesting one, particularly given the emotional weight behind everything. Like I think it came through in how that fight was portrayed. So on that front, once again, you know, between James Wan, the director, and the stunt and fight coordinators, I think those guys did an amazing job. What I do have to say though is, of course, this, as we mentioned, follows the events of Justice League. Now, maybe rather pose it as a question. What's your take on the notion of the tone that different movies in one cinematic universe should take or are allowed to take, if you will? We know Zack Snyder has established a dark and brooding mood, but that's not what we had here.
Yeah. And I guess you can also see it in the world building as well. Lots of colorful, bright lights. I think for this movie, I'd actually give it a pass. I like the tone of this movie. Okay. Because it was serious. It was a serious movie. It's not like overcorrection like a Thor 3 Ragnarok, where they made it a comedy movie. It was still a nice, grounded movie with grounded elements. You know, it's the king or the chosen one coming to terms with the weight and burden of his role in the crown. Yeah. It's it had grounded themes. I think that's the one theme. The other theme was obviously King Orm and his his acceptance of being the lesser one and whatnot, and also just so I liked the tone that this movie set. Okay. I think initially I didn't like it as much when I first initially watched it, but on the rewatch I was like, actually, this actually kind of makes sense. Okay. It feeds in. Yes, there are light-hearted moments, but it didn't necessarily detract too much from the overall and overarching story. And you did have your darker elements splintered in as well. Like when they were with the trench people, I don't know what they call them. Yeah. That whole in the fight, in the storm, when they like attacking them horror movie style. And then they that visual of them just going down, you just check the whole thing following them. So there were like tones in terms of the cinematography that were darker, which I did enjoy. But I think on whole, I didn't have a problem with how this movie was laid out. But I know we've discussed in previous, why change? So do you have an alternative take?
Almost on the complete flip side, in the sense that I recall enjoying it a lot more when it dropped versus now. Okay. Look, even before starting this thing, of course, with these movies, there's always that little critique that you have for yourself or whatever. And I saw how so many people were unhappy with it. And I remember being like, what the hell is wrong with y'all? I love this movie, And now, besides being, an amateur reviewer, if you will, and also the, shall we say, succession in which we're watching all these movies, it's become, a lot of things stand out a lot clearer. It's easier to pinpoint and, critique and that sort of thing. So what stood out for me was the fact that I'm not necessarily comparing it, blindly against Zack Snyder. I only mentioned him because he did Justice League, the Snyder cut anyway.
But technically we didn't get that yet.
Yeah.
You see, this is following Justice League.
But now, okay, I'll mention that as a caveat, right? If to contextualize what we're saying, in the order of events of the real world, they released Justice League, which was 2017, and basically directed by Joss Whedon. So you got a lighter Justice League, and then after that they released Aquaman, which is also on the lighter side of things. Then further down the line, only 2020 or something.
Yeah, during COVID.
Yeah, they released Zack Snyder's Justice League, which is darker. So in my mind, I'm comparing the darker Justice League to the lighter Aquaman, hence the disparity that I'm seeing. Whereas in real time, it matched the tone. That's a very good point, actually. Okay. With that said, though, for me, it wasn't too big a departure because the world was dark. Aquaman was on the broodier side of things, but he wasn't completely dark. So this wasn't a 180 switch, but it was definitely a slight departure from what, he was portrayed as in the Snyder Cut. So between that and the fact of the weight of the world being on his shoulders, it almost felt a bit odd watching him, crack jokes and being quippy here and there. And I'm like, I don't know about that, but you've actually provided some needed context in that aspect. So I suppose I should shoot them, some bail where that's concerned. Plus, as you said, which I acknowledged as well in my viewing, that it wasn't all the way down that rabbit hole. There was still some darker tones. And I mean, of course, basic things like, people being killed.
Yeah.
The whole thing of, trying to take over the throne from within the family and the fights and the other elements that we've mentioned, they were technically on the darker side as well. So that pretty much makes up for it in that aspect. Now, I mentioned earlier with Amber Heard, I didn't have an issue with her portrayal, but there's a story-related element that I was a bit unsure of. And for me, it's that whole love story with her and Aquaman. I don't know if they are, the highlight or, the main love interest or whatever in their lore. I don't care. My point is, if you're going to have them be love interest, try to maybe build on it or have the chemistry. There was such a random kiss that they had there. And I'm like, wait, this whole time you guys are, almost like besties. Maybe even like, let's just say besties. Let's not, you're more on that vibe. Maybe friend zone, maybe rather go with that term.
I don't know.
But then at the end, all of a sudden, big smooch on some go get them lover. And I'm like, but you guys didn't really plant the seeds. You just had them acting together in a couple scenes. That surely shouldn't be enough.
Yeah, it was a bit, and I had written down in my notes.
Yeah.
It was a bit on the nose. It was like, okay, but now how does it add to the story?
Yeah,
I think that I'll agree with you there. That's the one kind of gripe I had.
Yeah.
It's like don't shoe in a love story now. We don't
build it.
Yeah, we don't need it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that kiss in the middle of the wall, I was like, okay, as well. They did have the good, playful moments, which obviously they could have built over time as well, because they actually spent a lot of time together in this movie.
But again, it was not the nature of the interaction. It was always business as usual. Yeah. Hey man, company, we need you. She was the one roping him in, trying to, convince him.
And him educating her on the surface world,
Yes.
She was literally a fish out of water.
Bringing each other, in the middle, exactly. So, that was super random. Again, I don't mind it happening, but I'm like, motivated at least. Convince me to buy into this.
That's the thing. It wasn't, they had the chemistry, definitely.
Yeah.
But it wasn't convincing enough to be a love interest.
All of a sudden be romantic, And another major casting
and my thing, just to
finish
all that, it was like you're betrothed to his brother, and then all of a sudden, in a few days, you're switching allegiances. I'm like, it's a bit like...
they could have done a little more with that conflict of...
they could have been like portrayed like she's forced into this marriage and really doesn't want it or whatever.
So I think, there was a little oversight on their part. But again, in the grander scheme of things, certainly not the worst thing that it could have happened. Again, in the context of this movie, it's like,
in the context of the next movie, you can figure it out.
Another major casting we did not speak on, which I just remembered, Dolph Lundgren. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
speaking about heavy hitters that just popped up again.
Your
out of the blue.
1980s action
Yeah,
movie
man,
star
like,
himself.
the Russian.
Ivan Drago.
Yeah. What you think about him? For me, I just want to quickly say I like the relative subtlety
Yeah,
of the character. in
he's
the
a side
show.
character.
Yeah.
And he portrays he's got the air of a king to him.
Yes,
And
yes.
yeah, it's good.
Yeah. That's my
Yeah.
summation as well. Like, yeah, nice, quick, simple, you know,
Mm.
he appeared here and there, but it wasn't a matter of like trying to put him like front and center.
Yeah.
Because again, let's be honest,
Like
man, a lot
a,
of
like
these-
a Will Smith in Suicide
Suicide
Squad.
Squad, yeah, trying to make it roll around him. We must admit, a lot of these old school action guys, they aren't the best actors
Yeah.
either. They were great fighters, and you know, rule
For the
number one
time,
is
yeah.
asses in seats. If you get people there, we're gonna prop you up, we're gonna make you number one, but we don't ever conflate that with being a great actor. And so even with him, I think, yeah, he does action well and that sort of thing. So I like that they kept him kind of,
Yeah.
you know, just in the right position, had him up here just enough, and we keep it moving. But once again, a fun little surprise. I would not have anticipated him, you know, in this type of a movie. I'm trying to think now. Anything else that you feel warrants, you know, some highlighting, be it good or bad? Because for me, again, I enjoyed it the first time around. This time, it felt like, I don't know, not that there were necessarily, you know, bad elements or whatever. I enjoyed it, but it just seemed like kind of an overall okay story. I think I maybe felt like they could have done a little more here and there, that sort of thing, but it just didn't necessarily hit as hard as it did the first time around. So I don't know if it's a similar story for you in terms of the overall view, or
Yeah, I don't know for me if it's because the last two reviews we've done, right,
Yeah.
have been Suicide Squad
Mhm.
and Justice League.
yes.
And those two are objectively bad movies. And maybe I'm just finding more good things to look at.
Okay.
But I definitely felt like I enjoyed this one. And I
Yeah.
was more, I think, definitely more forgiving
Okay.
in the gaps in the knowledge.
Yeah. Okay. No, I can respect that because it's very clear and evident where and how it could have been, you know, much worse.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, it certainly wasn't a drag, and it didn't feel like a waste of time.
Like the runtime fit the story well.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
wasn't like I know we mentioned like a Suicide Squad, like just a smidge around 2 hours, but it felt like 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I think from that aspect, then I'll say it was a nice type story,
Yeah.
and
A really good comeback from what they were recovering from at this
yes, and even in the world of origin stories, I think
Yeah.
they did quite a good job.
point. And
You would think origin stories would be easy to do because it's like, again, man, you've got all the material in the world and whatever, but I've seen a couple instances where they just go down the wrong path, it drags on too long in certain aspects, but this one, I think, you kept it nice and simple. Look, man, you are the rightful heir to this throne.
you need to take the throne. You need to
We're
save
trying
the
to get
world.
you
Yeah.
to come and step in, but he's got his own gripes because, in a sense, these are the same people that have abandoned
he's an
him
outsider. Yeah.
all the time. All he knows is his dad,
They
the surface
took
world.
his mom away. You know?
And I like the conflict because he kept visiting.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a relationship that he had with Willem Dafoe, you know, who basically raised him, and also it also makes sense why he would eventually accept. It's not a matter of they randomly pop up and you're like, I don't know these people. Then you're like, okay, fine. It's like, nah, there's seeds and connections that led to that decision, you know. And even with the connection of the mom coming back and okay, so yeah, I think as much as I may not have been as hyped as before, your context does make a lot of sense. But even when you break it down to the specifics, you realize you still got.
It's a nice standalone. If it's a standalone movie, it also worked well.
Yeah, still got a dope movie
yeah.
at the end of the day. Okay.
Yeah. So, what do you say about costume design?
Costume design. So here's my thing, which also I suppose speaks to one of my gripes with, I suppose, the movie, yes, but comic book movies at large. I've mentioned this so many times. The whole idea of, you know, the CGI, if you guys are shooting in front of, you know, a stadium which is made up of, you know, blue and green screens and that sort of thing, we still see that when watching the movie to the point of it being distracting, certainly for me. That being said, I think between the costume design and even being underwater for a good portion of it, they did quite a good job. But I could still see where it could have been better, specifically with the whole underwater thing.
Yeah, but that's a tough one though, because
Without a doubt, without a
one
doubt, I
to,
acknowledge that.
yeah.
But it's like I can't remember which director said it. If we think of how, and I mean Marvel down the line does this quite a lot, where you de-age a character digitally, and the guy was like, no matter how well it's done, you're still distracted by the level of focus and attention you're paying to it, whether you're trying to find mistakes or because of the mistakes that are looking right at you. A basic example is, let's say, Robert De Niro and company in The Irishman. We know the younger versions of these dudes. So even when they make them digitally younger, you keep thinking, nah, it's not exactly how he looked. Or if something else is a bit weird out of place, like, nah, this seems odd, that seems, So it's very distracting, even though it's high quality CGI. And that's kind of how I feel or felt when watching this in the underwater. The whole time I'm just like looking at other things, not necessarily being drawn in and immersed in that world. I'm more nitpicking. I just can't help it, but it is what it is. Again, that being said, I acknowledge the great work that was done. The costume design, I actually liked it. I liked it, and I say that because at some point there was a monotony, so to speak, among different costumes that different characters wear. And the reason why that was contextualized by a channel that I watch, which was doing a review specifically about costumes. And they're like, at the end of the day, even though the different characters and different spaces for different roles, for one studio, the design is done by one person or one team. So it all comes from the same person at the end of the day. Hence, there not being that much difference. But this is different on almost every level. I mean, obviously they use fish scales as an inspiration. And so it's like, what other character looks remotely close to them, So the differentiation I enjoyed quite a lot, but the badassery that goes with it as well, I liked quite a lot.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I enjoyed the costume design. Everyone's unique and it popped.
Yeah. And I appreciate the other little subtle elements they brought into the whole underwater space, like if it's the way the air flows, the changing of the voices,
small nuanced things like that.
Things like that. Just to be like, hey man, we're in a whole other medium, and let's try to build that world separately to what we have in the surface world, as they say. So I like that quite a bit. I don't know if there's anything else that stood out for you.
No, not really. Yeah, I think I've covered the stuff I wanted to cover.
Okay.
Anything else storyline wise?
Nah, I think storyline wise, again, because this is more of a Aquaman is the ruler of, is it Atlantis. I don't know if it's also the Seven Seas or what, but he's the king basically. And in here, you're showing his ascension to the throne.
Yeah.
That's all you need. I like how they didn't try to do too much, go overboard. Everything else, like, no, we'll get to the stories of him as the king.
Also, just filling in there as well. Also, just showing that he is unique. He's got his unique powers that only who's considered the one true king has. And he's he's the half breed, but he also has them. Like talking to that Kraken, the monster.
Even as a kid, when like the sharks were in the aquarium, and you already had those abilities. I think that was pretty interesting, particularly because I don't know if I've ever thought about it as far as, is it an Atlantean thing or is it just an Aquaman thing? Obviously, I'll just tell you that. Man.
It's just an Aquaman thing,
And as you say, I like that it clearly shows that
he's the king.
Yeah, because that's the thing you can't dispute. If everyone could, portray those abilities, then it's like, nah, but I'm better because when I was like, hey man, can you talk to the fish? Then get out the way, So I think that was a pretty interesting aspect that they had. To add on to the whole CGI and real world comment, I liked the locations, man. Anytime there's a real world location, like it just reminds you that there's certain things that you just can't fake, certain textures, even on a visual basis. And you start to understand. I remember as a kid, I'm like, why do these people talk about shooting movies in another country and this and that? But when you watch it,
they were in, was it Greece or Italy or
I think
they
it
were
was
Europe.
Greece, I'm
you
not
know?
sure, but yeah,
Greece,
you can see the architecture and
and even just the geography
Mhm.
and having that chase scene, just like added to it.
running around
Yeah,
and
through buildings on roofs and
exactly.
yeah.
And not just generic buildings, as tends to be the case, because everything must happen in New York for some reason. So things like that for me.
Hey, that's a different recap series.
For me, things like that are always like super appreciated, and it's one of those things where they're like, you don't know what you have until it's gone. So now that they're becoming rarer and rarer, whenever you see them again, it's like good on y'all for sticking to your guns where this is concerned. And I think that pretty much then is all I needed to express where this is concerned.
It's a nice movie. If you've got nothing to do on a Friday or something, definitely go give it a watch.
Switch it on, and it's very interesting, man, in the sense that I feel like it's a good movie. There isn't too much to say about it, whether on the positive or negative, but it's like a solid, bold good.
Yeah.
Which we haven't had in quite some time.
Yeah,
usually it's like very great or just fine.
Yeah.
So that's why it was so hard to articulate certain aspects for.
It's nothing bad, but there's nothing else. You know what?
Just an odd, middle ground element where it was placed. So what would you then give it out of 10?
I would say 6.5.
Literally what I was gonna get at. I was tempted between that and a 7, but I'm like, nah.
But there are better movies that we rated 7.
Yeah, and for me, as I said, it's not amazing, but it's like very good in a solid way, So I think 6.5 definitely hits the nail on the head there. With that said, let's see if we can recall now our DCEU.
I think this one's a little bit easier because there's only 3 at the moment.
Yeah, there's like Man of Steel, there's
Batman
vs Superman,
and Wonder Woman 1.
Wonder Woman 1. But then...
we don't need to talk about anything else. There's only 3 movies we've ranked so far.
Okay, so in our top 3, right?
Yeah.
But now remember, in the overall scheme of things, there's then Justice League to put into the mix. So...
Are we considering original Justice League?
No. There's only... the original does not, the Joss Whedon, they actually call it Justice League Online. I don't know if you know.
Justice League, okay. So are we considering Justice League?
Justice League does not deserve to be in the top 5. We know that the Zack Snyder cut does, right?
Yeah.
So, Man of Steel, I believe, Man of Steel is our number 1, Wonder Woman is our number 2, Batman vs Superman is number 3. Now, with Zack Snyder, right?
Zack Snyder's
the Snyder Cut, Justice League, and this Aquaman movie. How do we...
That's a tough one, eh?
Yeah. I feel like, because now that is 5 movies.
Yeah.
I want to say Aquaman is number 5.
Yes, I can agree with that.
Yeah. And then it's more a matter of where to slot the Snyder Cut.
I would say...
If we had
Snyder Cut, I'd probably put it 1.
Man of Steel and Wonder Woman. I'm trying to fight between 1 and 2. Obviously, the other 3 are just gonna shift down.
Yeah.
I'm fighting between
I'm
1
sandwiching
and 2.
this now.
I'm trying to think between 1 and 2 where Snyder Cut would end up. Yeah, I don't know if it's as easy. You say 1. Is that a hard one, or are you just thinking of it?
I would say 1. But then also I've got a bit of bias considering how bad Justice League.
But remember, this is now...
And also what we've got in hindsight as well. Because obviously Snyder Cut came after we've seen everything.
That's actually something I always wanted to highlight. But again, obviously the Snyder Cut review will have a breakdown of this. But a quick anecdote there. The fact that we need to acknowledge that Zack Snyder got a chance to also fix whatever he wanted to do when the movie was concerned. He didn't just come back and finish it, But again, even with that in mind, where would we put it? Look, we've of course given ourselves the flexibility to change as often as we want, but at this moment...
I think I'd still put it at 1.
Okay. I think I would have it at 2. The main reason being the pacing of Man of Steel is miles ahead of Justice League.
Fair,
As great as Justice League is, we can still pick out a couple scenes that we could have done without. So I think
Okay.
based on that.
Yeah. Okay.
So okay, then
I'll concede then. Yeah.
our list will
Okay.
become
Man
Man of Steel,
Snyder
Snyder
Cut.
Cut, Wonder Woman, Batman vs Superman, and then Aquaman.
Although I'm thinking now, Batman vs
I'm
Superman
trying-
and
that's what I was
Wonder
gonna-
Woman. I think that was switched around.
So Batman vs Superman is before Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm thinking again about what the differentiators could be. So if we consider pacing, the scale, and all
Story,
of that.
character introductions.
Yeah.
Also, the story just had more weight to it in Batman vs Superman. Whereas Wonder Woman would also be an origin story because I think that's post. Post
You're right.
Batman vs Superman.
Yeah. Because as much as there's certain things I'm trying to argue in favor of Wonder Woman, but I'm like, it's Batman vs Superman.
Yeah.
Look, we can talk about not being biased, or that doesn't exist. And so what if we're biased? I mean,
And if our list changes in between episodes,
then it changes,
okay,
man.
cool.
We'll just go with that episode at that point. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So it becomes the Man of Steel, Zack Snyder's Justice League. It's Batman vs Superman, Wonder Woman 1, and then Aquaman.
Yeah.
Okay, I can live
I
with
would
that list.
say that.
Yeah, I can live with that list.
Nice.
So with that said, we reached the end of this particular review. Shout out for sticking through this long. Hit us with that like, hit us with the subscribe, follow us on Instagram, the Phantom Geek Zone. And we always say, share your comments and all of that. Something maybe we don't highlight enough is our top fives. I think also definitely, make it a point to comment, especially if you have something different. But you can, put it in the comment and then we'll obviously respond. I can't wait for the day where that becomes more common because I'm keen to have debates with our viewers.
You just want to troll the trolls.
I'm happy
Troll
to debate.
the trolls.
I'm happy to debate. But that's it from us. We'll catch y'all at the next one. Peace.